Imagine this. What if I told you that a massive $2,000 check could land in your bank account this year, changing everything for struggling families and seniors across America, but only if you qualify under some surprising rules that most people are completely missing? Hold on tight, because in the next few minutes, I'm diving deep into the explosive buzz about this potential stimulus payout in 2026, separating wild rumors from cold, hard facts, and revealing exactly who might get that life-changing cash while others get left out in the cold. If you're tired of skyrocketing bills and endless financial stress, this could be the game changer you've been waiting for. So hit that subscribe button right now to stay ahead of the curve on all things money and economy. And drop a comment below letting me know if you think this stimulus is really coming. Your thoughts could spark the next big discussion. All right, let's jump right in without wasting a second, because over the past week or so, social media has been on fire with talk of a $2,000 stimulus check hitting American wallets in 2026, sparking a whirlwind of excitement, doubt, and outright confusion among everyday folks who are still grappling with stubbornly high prices on everything from groceries to gas. If you're sitting there wondering if this is legit, whether Uncle Sam is gearing up to send out another round of relief, and crucially, if you'd even make the cut for that sweet payout, trust me, you're in good company. Millions are feeling that same mix of hope and hesitation as rents devour paychecks, food costs climb relentlessly, and basic living expenses turn into a constant battle for survival, especially for older Americans on fixed incomes and hardworking parents trying to keep their households afloat. But pump the brakes before you start daydreaming about what you do with an extra $2,000, because this isn't some straightforward handout for all, nor is it the no-strings-attached bonanza that viral TikToks and Twitter threads are hyping it up to be. In fact, some folks might snag it easily while others get zilch, and the eligibility twists could catch you off guard if you're not paying close attention. To really grasp what's going on, we need to rewind and unpack why this idea is bubbling up now, because it didn't just materialize from nowhere. It's rooted in real economic pressures that are quietly building steam behind the scenes, even as official reports paint a picture of a stable recovery. Think about it. Sure, the stock market might be humming along and unemployment numbers look decent on paper, but zoom in on the average household and you'll see a different story unfolding, one where families are stretching every dollar thinner than ever. With credit card debts piling up to record highs, late payments becoming more common, and people dipping into emergency savings or resorting to those sneaky buy now, pay later schemes, not for fancy gadgets or vacations, but for essentials like bread, fuel, prescriptions, and utility bills that just won't quit rising. This isn't hype, it's backed by data from financial watchdogs, showing delinquency rates ticking upward and consumer confidence wavering, creating a perfect storm where one surprise expense, a car repair, a medical bill, or even a spike in heating costs, could tip someone from barely managing to full-blown crisis mode, trapping them in a vicious cycle of fees, interest hikes, and damaged credit that makes climbing out feel impossible. Now, why does this matter to the powers that be in Washington? Well, it's simple economics. When everyday people like you and me can't afford to spend freely on dining out, shopping, or even basic upkeep, the whole machine starts grinding slower. Businesses see fewer customers, they hesitate to hire or even start trimming staff, leading to reduced hours, job losses, and a broader slowdown that forces the government to step in later with even costlier fixes. So in a way, floating ideas like this stimulus isn't purely about kindness or charity, it's a strategic move to shore up stability, prevent a deeper downturn, and keep the economic engine running smoothly before things spiral out of control. And let's not ignore the timing here. 2026 is lining up to be a pivotal year with multiple pressures converging, from strained federal programs like Social Security facing solvency concerns amid an aging population, to Medicare expenses ballooning as healthcare demands grow, and state governments in various regions tightening belts due to uneven recoveries from past shocks, all while the relentless cost of living squeeze hits hardest on those least able to absorb it, like retirees, disabled individuals, and low-wage workers who find their budgets eroded by inflation that outpaces any modest raises or benefit bumps. Speaking of which, if you're collecting Social Security, disability payments, or supporting someone who is, pay extra attention because this ties directly into your world. Sure, there's the annual cost of living adjustment, or COLA, that's supposed to help benefits keep up with inflation, but here's the kicker. COLA is pegged to a government-calculated index that often lags behind real-world price jumps, meaning your check might inch up by a couple percent while your actual costs for housing, food, transportation, and doctor visits soar by double digits, leaving you feeling perpetually shortchanged and scrambling to make ends meet in ways that erode quality of life, like cutting back on nutritious meals, skipping needed medications, or even delaying home repairs that could lead to bigger problems down the line. This gap isn't just an annoyance, it's a systemic flaw affecting tens of millions, turning what should be a safety net into a threadbare blanket. And it's precisely why chatter about supplemental payments like this $2,000 boost keeps resurfacing. Not as some pie-in-the-sky fantasy, but as a response to mounting evidence that current supports aren't cutting it anymore. Digging deeper, the conditions fueling this stimulus speculation are eerily similar to what we've seen before major relief packages, starting with grassroots frustration boiling over as people voice their struggles online, in town halls, and through polls, putting heat on politicians who know ignored grievances can flip elections or spark unrest. Then there's the insider data lawmakers scrutinize, like dwindling household savings rates that hit historic lows, widening wealth gaps that leave the bottom half of earners increasingly vulnerable, and housing markets where affordability has plummeted, forcing more folks into precarious rentals or even homelessness risks. And finally, the shift toward precision-targeted aid rather than blanket distributions, a lesson learned from the pandemic era when broad checks helped many, but also drew criticism for inefficiency. So now, any new proposal is likely to zero in on specific demographics with clear needs, complete with income caps, asset tests, and other qualifiers to ensure the money flows where it's deemed most critical. This targeted approach is key to understanding why not everyone's popping champagne over the headlines. Social media thrives on oversimplified narratives where $2,000 magically appears for all, no questions asked. But reality is messier, with policymakers viewing these payments as tools to address inequities, stabilize consumption, and support at-risk groups without ballooning deficits unnecessarily. Which means if this gains traction, expect strings like phase-outs based on earnings, bonuses for families with kids, or preferences for regions hit by natural disasters or economic slumps. To illustrate, consider how past rounds worked. During COVID, checks went out widely at first, but later iterations tightened focus on lower incomes. And something similar could play out here, prioritizing vulnerable populations while sidelining those seen as more self-sufficient, even if they're quietly struggling too. Now, let's get real about who stands the best shot at qualifying if this materializes, because eligibility isn't a free-for-all, it's a calculated filter designed to channel aid efficiently, and topping the list are often seniors drawing Social Security retirement benefits, not just because of their age, but due to the fixed income trap, where modest COLA can't match surging expenses for essentials like assisted living, prescription drugs, or even utility bills in extreme weather areas,
making them prime candidates for extra help to maintain independence and avoid poverty's edge. But don't assume every retiree gets in automatically. Factors like additional income from part-time jobs, investments, or private pensions could bump you over thresholds, turning what seems like a sure thing into a denial. So it's about proven need, not just years lived. Similarly, folks on Social Security Disability Insurance, SSDI, or Supplemental Social Security Income, SSI, are frequently highlighted in these talks, given their constrained earning potential, elevated medical outlays, and rigid rules that cap assets and side income, often leaving them teetering on financial cliffs where a single cost hike, like pricier adaptive equipment or therapy copays, could devastate budgets. So a one-off $2,000 infusion might be positioned as a buffer against such volatility, helping cover gaps that standard benefits overlook. Yet again, caveats apply. SSI's strict limits mean exceeding even modest savings or gifts could disqualify you, underscoring how these programs demand meticulous compliance to access any extras. Moving to employed households, the picture gets even more nuanced, with many floated ideas incorporating sliding scales, where earnings below, say, $50,000 for individuals or $100,000 for families might unlock full amounts, tapering off as incomes rise, and bonuses or adjustments for dependents like children or elderly relatives, recognizing that larger households amplify pressures from school supplies, childcare, or caregiving duties that eat into disposable income. For instance, a single mom juggling 2 jobs and 3 kids in a high-cost city might qualify easily, while a dual-income couple without children earning just a bit more could miss out, highlighting how family structure and geography factor in, sometimes tipping the scales based on local living costs or tax filings that account for deductions like mortgage interest or medical expenses. And here's a harsh reality check. Middle-class workers who hover above low-income brackets but below true comfort levels, think teachers, nurses, or small business owners, buried under student debt, vehicle loans, and insurance premiums, frequently end up in the donut hole of aid, earning too much to qualify, yet not enough to thrive, fueling resentment as they watch relief bypass them despite their own squeezes, a dynamic that sparked debates about fairness in prior packages and could do so again. Beyond income, other hurdles loom, like your IRS track record. If you haven't filed returns lately, skipped updating your address, or lack direct deposit setup from previous stimulus rounds, you could face delays or outright misses, turning potential windfalls into bureaucratic nightmares.
And this vulnerability is catnip for fraudsters who flood inboxes and phones with phony eligibility verification schemes demanding sensitive info. So remember, legitimate government outreach never asks for payments or clicks on shady links. If it smells fishy, it probably is. On the flip side, timing adds another layer of uncertainty. Even if greenlit, rollout wouldn't be overnight, involving congressional wrangling, budget allocations, agency logistics, and phased distributions, where electronic transfers zip out first, followed by mailed checks that might lag weeks or months, especially for rural areas or those without banking access, breeding impatience and misinformation as people chase phantom dates online. So, what's your playbook amid all this speculation? First off, ditch any impulse spending based on unconfirmed hype. Instead, double-check your tax docs for accuracy, confirm your contact details with relevant agencies, and cultivate realistic outlooks, knowing that while a $2,000 pop could provide breathing room for debts, emergencies, or even small investments like home efficiency upgrades, it's no panacea for deeper issues like wage stagnation or healthcare reform. Moreover, broaden your strategy. Explore local resources like food banks, utility assistance programs, or community colleges for skill-building courses that could boost earnings long-term. And consider side hustles if feasible, from gig apps to freelance work to build buffers against uncertainty. Looking ahead, the wild card is how economic winds shift. If job markets soften, inflation reignites, or geopolitical events like trade tensions disrupt supply chains, pressure for action could accelerate, potentially expanding eligibility or amounts. But conversely, if growth holds steady and deficits swell, proposals might fizzle or morph into alternatives like tax credits or program expansions rather than direct cash. Either way, the mere buzz signals underlying tensions that merit monitoring, from Federal Reserve moves on interest rates that could ease borrowing costs to state-level initiatives like California's occasional stimulus or New York's rent relief, which sometimes preview federal trends. To stay sharp, curate your info sources wisely. Stick to reputable outlets like the IRS website, Treasury updates, or nonpartisan think tanks over sensationalist blogs, and engage in community forums, safely, of course, to share experiences without spreading unverified claims. Ultimately, whether this $2,000 dream materializes or not, empowering yourself with knowledge positions you to navigate whatever comes, turning potential aid into a stepping stone rather than a crutch. And remember, collective voices have swayed policy before, so if you're passionate, reach out to representatives with reasoned input on why targeted relief matters. In closing, as we wrap this deep dive, keep in mind that economic stories like this evolve rapidly, so subscribing ensures you catch every twist. And commenting your predictions below not only builds our community, but might even highlight angles I missed. Let's keep the conversation going strong.